Hello, everybody. So today we're doing quarterback rankings of this season. We brought Nishant, our NFL expert, kicked Ömer out again. Just kidding. He's coming back later, and AD's coming back too. But yeah, Nishant, go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk quarterbacks. This is a really interesting time to be doing this because we've got a lot of new faces among the league. And I think an interesting spot to start in is talking about the rookies. And I have a hot take coming out of the gate. This is not for this year, but I think that Drake May is going to be very, very good. Uh, I don't think it's going to be this year. And the reason I think that is because I don't even know if the Patriots are going to start him right away. But I really do think there's a shot we look at this in 5, 10 years and say he was the best one to come out of this draft class. And I think there's a couple reasons behind that. Bill Belichick obviously isn't in New England anymore, but I think that organization is still just very well run. And you're looking at a team that has the structure needed for a guy to learn. He's going to learn behind Jacoby Brissett. And sometimes that's really all you need. I mean, not to do the Mahomes comparison quite literally, but like for Mahomes, he had that 1 year behind Alex Smith. And I think we see a similar thing with Drake May where like, look, does he take over in week 12, 13 maybe? Does he just come out next year after this kind of 1 year transitional period? I think Drake May is really, really exciting. And the preface to all of this is that not only am I not a quarterback scout, but even if you are a quarterback scout, no one's seeing into the future here. I just think that he's a really exciting player and has all the tools that could be necessary to light up the league. Um, you're looking at the other rookies, but one from last year that I think is going to be that upper echelon is CJ Stroud. And my cursor is terrible. Okay, CJ Stroud, franchise QB right now. Could he be the best of the best in a couple of years? Yeah, absolutely. I think so. It's hard to put for me. It's hard to make a declarative statement that anyone outside of Mahomes is in that best of the best category. But I think Stroud is already after his rookie year, showing the signs that Houston made an excellent decision in drafting him. And I think backing him up with those extra offensive tools after year one is a really strong statement. I think that the Houston Texans believe in him, and I think that having Stephon Diggs on that team is a big deal. And he already had good receivers or receivers he was making look good, depending on your point of view. But I think CJ is really in solid position to be in that top category in just a few years. It's a little bit too early to crown him because of a thing that we call the sophomore slump. But I'm really I think optimistic about how he'll be. Now, this next one is also an interesting topic of conversation, but I think Justin Herbert takes that final step in his what we've seen so far range, and I think he goes into that top tier range. The reason I think this is because so let's back up to CJ Stroud for a second. I went to Ohio State, so I have a huge Ohio State bias, which is probably why I think CJ's like the future. Another takeaway from Ohio State that I had is having to play against Michigan. Biggest rivals, all the hate is there, blah, blah, blah. And while I don't like Jim Harbaugh and I think he's a weird dude, and would I grab a cup of coffee with the guy? Probably not. But he's a good football coach, and it really shows up, and that's something you just can't deny. And I think what the Chargers have been missing is that really, really good football coach for Herbert, a guy that knows how to lead a team, a guy that's used to working with these players, a guy that has NFL experience, backing up to all the way back to his days in San Francisco. And so I think that I don't know if it's the perfect gel fit in terms of I don't know either of them, but I think that he's the stability that Herbert needs to finally get that last step up and be in that table elitaire or whatever, like elite conversation. I think he's been on the borderline already, which is why people point to that so far. But yeah, the next
I
one's
feel,
boring. I mean,
I feel like he's gonna be sad watching this video. He's not gonna have a cup of coffee with me. So
yeah,
you hurt his feelings.
Harbaugh is a frequent listener. um, Mahomes boring. I mean, do I even have to? I'm not gonna even talk about that. It's undeniable
Fair.
at this point. Um, okay, so this is an interesting one. And I'm going to put Rodgers in bridge QB. And I don't know if it's going to ruffle feathers. The reason I'm saying this is not because he's not good. It's because having Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback is unsustainable. Not only because of the age factor, but I mean, I'm not going to dive into the various off the field things that have happened with him. A lot of it self inflicted, I would argue. I just don't think that an organization like the Jets, which you know counters what I was just saying about the Patriots, I don't think they're as stable of an organization, and I don't know if they're equipped to handle a personality as big as Rodgers is. I think it's kind of a sunk cost effect thing at this point where they gambled on him, and I don't think the gamble's paying off so far. I don't know if it ever will, and we're talking about the three-tiered, like the three-pronged sword or whatever. That's not a thing, but of like injury problems, huge deal. Age, huge deal. And off the field, I hate to say antics, but off the field stuff that's happening. And you get all those three, and you combine them into this like soup of distractions that have happened with the Jets. So look, is Rodgers still probably, could he be one of the best quarterbacks in the league? I'm sure he could. I just don't think it's sustainable and it's not worth it. And I think they should be looking at what's next up. I don't know if they will, but I think that's what they should be doing. Um, let's see. I'm looking over this list next. Somebody that I'm kind of optimistic about, oddly, is a former number one pick. Um, I don't know if it counts as a hot take to say he's good, but I think that Baker's career has been one of the most interesting storylines to follow. You look at these like number one overall picks, and I think that usually they're either condemned as like bust or they're really good. I mean, Peyton Manning struggled for a few years and then just became one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And I think more so when we're looking at these number one picks, I don't think they're given as much of a margin of error nowadays. I think they're expected to step on immediately and be the best of the best. And so for Baker, I think that getting that redemption opportunity after he was given up on, the Brown situation was strange, but and then the Panthers stint was weird. Coming back to the Bucks and earning a contract extension and being a successful quarterback and being in the playoffs, it's a really big deal. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think while we may not know if he's elite, if he's going to ever get to that point, if he's ever going to be the top 5 guy, I think he's good. And I think that much has been decided. Okay. So looking at this list now, I'm debating whether to say something about the other rookie quarterbacks or not, but let's look at Dak. So Dak, I'm also going to be putting in good. Okay, well, it's not letting me move it, but
he just doesn't want to go.
Dak, he doesn't believe in himself as much as he should.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to go into the good category. The reason I'm putting Dak in the good category and not the really good category, blah, 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 is, well, I mean, first of all, his regular season stats, he's literally, I saw a thing that comparing his stats to Patrick Mahomes in the regular season, and it's borderline even. And it's the playoffs, and it's getting over the hump, and that's been Dallas's problem in general. That's why there's all these memes about them not doing anything since the 90s. So I think Dak is in a spot where, okay, he's good, but how good will he be on another team? Because that's likely what's going to happen. I don't think Dallas keeps him after this point. We're looking at next year and speculating at like maybe he plays for a division rival, maybe he's somewhere else. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, especially because he was contradicting what I said about Baker. He wasn't a high draft pick. And so proving yourself as a not high draft pick is a harder challenge. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what his success looks like after that first stint. But he's obviously been very successful so far. This one I'm not going to talk about too much. I'm not a Daniel Jones guy. I never have been. I think he was reached for. I think their GM at the time was not the best. And I think that they've doubled down on this. The Giants have doubled down on this decision time and time again. I don't think that he's the guy. And I think they are trying to convince themselves almost that he is the guy. So I'm not going to comment about it too much further. I just don't think he's the guy that's going to be able to get it done. I'm going to put Kyler Murray into that good category as well. And Marvin Harrison Jr. this year by week 5, I think Kyler is going to escape that category, even though he doesn't want to as well, and move up to that really good category. Because I think that he's has the weapons now. I think he has a good coach, which I was talking about the other thing. Like I think he's going to surprise some people by having the longevity that a lot of people didn't think. So I'm going to put Joe Burrow and move on in a couple years, tentatively, which has nothing to do with skill level. It's just the injury problems and the fact that I think they need an insurance policy. And we've reached that point with just like the sample size of what they've done. Uh, there's not a lot of other ones that I think are I have an instant take about. But I will say that I think it's too early to tell for Brock Purdy. Um, I'm not gonna say he's in the trash bucket yet. I'm not gonna say he's great yet. What Brock Purdy has had a lot of success. He's in the Super Bowl, and like that's great and all. He has the best roster in the league. So it's like, how do you prove yourself outside of that? I think that kind of sums up my general thoughts going into this year. As far as that, I just wanted to kind of fill in each category at least a little bit. But those are some of the things that I think might age terribly as we get along into the season, but we'll see. I think it's impossible to predict quarterback success if you don't have a large sample size, and for a lot of these guys, I think that sample size is strange. But yeah, we'll see what shakes out.